All right, welcome back, everybody. As you probably guessed from what you're seeing on your screen here, we have a special guest. It is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. And why is he on here? Well, he is doing something that a lot of people have hoped someone would do over the years, and that is challenge Wayne Lapierre for his position at the NRA. At least that's my belief, anyway. With that, sir, I'll pass it off to you and kind of let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. And I would not say that I'm challenging Wayne Lapierre.
Okay.
I'm running for the NRA. And as you know, I was a member of the board there from 2016 to 2021. And I stepped down off of the board last year, August, because I just saw a lack of desire from the members of the board. I call it a cabal of corruption and cronyism that really want to set things straight for the National Rifle Association. And going back to 2019, when a lot of this started to surface and become public knowledge, I stood up at the board meeting back then in Indianapolis, and I asked for Wayne to step down and resign because we've got to be focused at the National Rifle Association because we're a preeminent organization. It is without a doubt the oldest civil rights organization that this nation has known, and right now we need that strong National Rifle Association. When you look at the onslaught of the progressivism and the socialism, Marxism, communism, that first and foremost wants to take away the Second Amendment, because that is the only way that leftism can advance itself. And we've seen that all throughout history, and most recently in Venezuela, when Hugo Chavez suspended private gun ownership. So I think the important thing is to, I was asked about 3 weeks ago by some current and former board members, would I be willing to allow my name to be offered up in nomination? And after prayer and talking with the family, we said absolutely right, because this is such an important organization. And 22 years in the military, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And last time I checked, the Second Amendment was part of the Constitution.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that, and that oath does not expire as well.
No.
What are like some of the biggest things you think that you'd be able to change if you were in that position instead of Wayne?
Well, I tell you, first and foremost, you got to restore the trust and confidence of the membership. We've seen about a 40 to 50% uh, degradation in donations to the NRA. We've seen about, I think, 120, 130 staff members that have been released. And when those are the type of things that are happening, when you're focused more so of the donor money on legal expenses and things of that nature, you're not doing what the NRA is supposed to do. And it was founded based upon the lack of good marksmanship coming out of the Civil War. So it is about marksmanship. It's about our programs, our training programs that we have out there, and it's also about the defense of the Second Amendment. So we got to get back to those core competencies. And I remember one of the things that troubled me sitting on the board was when the NRA, 501c3, not-for-profit organization, all of a sudden decided to get involved in a for-profit scheme, and that was the Carry Guard insurance program. And we weren't ready to do that. And when you look at the incorporation in New York, that meant that you followed on all of the laws, all of the rules and regulations of the state of New York, and they were just licking their chops. And we did not cross over all of our T's and dot all of our I's, and that led us down this path. So getting away from our core competencies hurt us. And so trust and confidence and restoring honor, integrity, and character to this organization, because it's common knowledge, a lot of the financial improprieties that have gone on. And you're not going to get people to come back to be members. And especially over the last, I think, 2 to 3 years, we sent about 7 million new gun owners, but they're not joining the National Rifle Association.
Yeah, it's true, and obviously, longtime viewers of my channel know I've made videos on the topic, and I've said I am a lifetime member. But
Hmm.
if I wasn't, and it was today, and Wayne was in charge, there's no way I would join. I simply wouldn't. Definitely that is important to change that out because I think there's a lot of people who feel that way as well. Speaking of your time on the board, one of the questions I had written down here is just uh, what's the process for you to be elected?
Hmm.
Because a lot of people don't understand how it works within the NRA.
Yeah, this is not something where the membership gets the opportunity to vote on it. This is the board of directors voting. And I will tell you one of the things that I think has to be reformed, and this is not something that I could do as the EVP, but it's something that the board, I mean, the membership needs to look at. You know, the largest corporation in the world is ExxonMobil. They only have about 15 to 16 board members. The National Rifle Association has about 76 board members. And I think that when you look at some of the restrictions and rules that have been put in place in the bylaws, it's becoming an aspect of protectionism of the board. I mean, lifetime membership for 5 years, all of these things, these high bars that they keep putting in there, and that's why I talk about a cabal that does not want to be broken up. And if you go back and you look at the IRS Form 990s for the National Rifle Association from 2009 up to 2020, I don't think 2021 has been public yet, but you'll see a lot of board members that have been receiving millions of dollars of donor money. You're not supposed to be sitting on the board and then also getting donor money because that's a conflict of interest. So I think that's one of the things we have to understand is that this is a decision that the board has to make. And if the board makes a decision that they want to stick with Wayne Lapierre, then they are really disregarding and dismissing their fiduciary responsibilities and duties. Because if we don't look at our organization and reform it within, then the state of New York is going to do that because there is still a trial pending that is coming up in October.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, particularly on the fiduciary responsibility portion of it. Obviously, it's not a direct parallel, but similar to what ended up, well, is in the process, I suppose, at Twitter, where
Mm.
those board members they do have a fiduciary responsibility, as you said. So, and Wayne, obviously, in the decisions that he's made, as well as other people, to be fair, is causing them to hemorrhage money much faster than they should have to, without question. So. Um, a few other questions that we had here submitted by our viewers rather. Just in general, are there gun laws in America that are in place right now that you agree with?
Well, not really. I mean, I think when you look at the basic construct of, private gun ownership, the Second Amendment is very clear. We've got a problem with red flag laws, and I would have people go back and remember in November 2018, a 61-year-old man, Gary J. Willis of Ferndale, Maryland, who was killed because of a red flag law. But guess what? We don't know where that red flag warrant came from. We don't know who the police officers were that shot him. And so we continue to see these things that are really disconcerting and troubling for me. For instance, here in Texas, we passed something in the last legislative session, HB 987, that says that if in the state of Texas I purchase a firearm that has been produced and manufactured to include suppression systems here in the state of Texas, I should not have to worry about the tax stamp coming from the federal government because that's a violation of the Commerce Clause that says that the federal government is only supposed to regulate commerce between states and other nations, or states with the Indian tribes. But yet, here in the state of Texas, I just had someone, or tactical, build me this incredible 9mm fully suppressed barrel system. And I'm sitting around waiting now, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, I don't know how long, before I would be able to get that weapon. I had to go back and, do fingerprinting, get pictures, $200. And so that's an additional taxation. That's an infringement upon my Second Amendment rights. So I think that it's very important that we start supporting members of Congress, House and Senate, and also members in our local state legislatures to make sure that we're doing the right things to protect that Second Amendment. One of the things I fought for as the chairman of the Republican Party here in Texas was to finally get constitutional carry passed. But I think it's so important now with the NRA to step in, and let's make sure that we are training people to be responsible gun owners with that as well, because we don't want to see people going out and think they're Doc Holliday.
For sure. But along the same token, there also shouldn't be a barrier to entry to being a gun owner either, right? So
No, no,
it's
absolutely right.
goes
I
both
mean, and if you think about what just recently happened in Buffalo and what happened in Sutherland Springs and many other places, it's been the failure of law enforcement. Sutherland Springs, the church shooting down there, that man that shot up that church had a dishonorable discharge from the United States Air Force. He had undergone a court martial for domestic violence, and the Air Force did not submit that into the system. So he should not have been able to get that weapon system. You look at what happened in Buffalo. a young man that without a doubt had mental illness issues, and the police did not follow up on it. They just had one basic, bringing him in and had an evaluation and never followed up. The same thing would happen in Parkland with Nicholas Cruz there in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. 21 times law enforcement were called out to his house, but yet nothing was done. Reference that. So I think it's very important that we focus on the people that are violating the laws that are on the books instead of putting more restrictive laws onto the books that only law-abiding citizens will pay attention to.
Yep. On that note, what laws would you be looking to that are currently in place? Would you be looking to lobby to have removed first? I guess.
Well, like I said, this whole thing about not being able to go out and get noise suppressor systems. I think that we have to pass that hearing act. We need to pass national reciprocity because we have gone down this path with Heller versus DC and McDonald versus the city of Chicago. So no state, no local municipality, whatever, should be able to say that we're not going to allow for people to have private gun ownership. That's already been interpreted, and court cases have stood up to defend and say that the Second Amendment is the law of the land. But look at what we're having. We're having this discussion now about the Roe v. Wade when that is not a right that was enumerated in the Constitution. That was a decision that was pretty much a failure of the court. So I think that we have to stand up and make sure that all of these things that the left is doing to try to undermine the Second Amendment, because that's how they chip away at it, piece by piece, slowly but surely. And we've got to make sure that that does not happen. And especially when we start to look and see what they're trying to do locally, the UN trying to put us under UN gun control mandates. We don't want to see that. And of course, right now we have the issue with the World Health Organization coming in and being able to declare health emergencies in the United States of America. So we cannot cede our sovereignty over. And the other thing we've got to do is make sure we support our law enforcement, make sure that we are supporting our borders, because when we are allowing more and more of illegals to pour into this country, we are trying to take away the ability of police to be able to do their jobs and law enforcement to do their jobs. We're increasing the chance, and we also have these what do you call it, the bail reform laws, where violent criminals are being released back out into the streets. So Americans have to be able to protect themselves, and I think that's the preeminent thing that I want to push for.
Okay. Speaking of law enforcement, I'm guessing you're aware of what the ATF is doing in several fronts, trying to chip away at our rights. What can the NRA do, if anything, to minimize, I guess, the damage or stop the rogue acts that the ATF is currently doing? Uh,
Well, yeah, I think without a doubt we need to have an NRA legislative priority list, and we need to make sure that we just don't go out there and say, this person supports gun rights, and we give them an A plus. We need to be very specific on our legislative policy and agenda that says these are the things we want to see happen. These are the things that we don't want to see happen with the ATF. These are the things that need to be changed and reformed with the ATF. And those are the type of candidates that we should be out there supporting through our ILA entity. And so I think it's very important that we get specific about what it means to be a freedom candidate and a liberty candidate, because without the Second Amendment, you don't have freedom and liberty in the United States of America. And that's what our founding fathers understood on that day of April the 19th of 1775, when they took the field at Lexington Green, that an armed individual is a citizen, a disarmed individual is a subject.
Absolutely. There is no doubt about that. So, with that, just a kind of a general question here. I think one thing that a lot of American gun owners, and this is with all organizations, not just the NRA, are somewhat frustrated with, is that we always seem to be on the defense. Like
Yeah.
how do we slow down the ATF? Like, what kind of question is that, right? Or Americans, that shouldn't even be something that we think of or have
Mhm.
that mindset. So how do we turn the narrative and go on the offensive?
Well, that's one of the great things I've always said. I spent 22 years in the military, and you don't win on defense. Even if you have a successful defense, you got to counterattack.
Right.
So we have got to be proactive in our thinking. We have got to sit down and strategize and look and see what the left is seeking to do, how they're seeking to use government agencies to usurp more of our freedoms, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment. And we got to beat them to that punch. So it is about the predictive analysis. It is about having, you know, we call it in the military a red cell, where you sit down and you think about what is the other side going to do, and you figure out their strategies first and foremost. And if you've ever read Sun Tzu, The Art of War, that's one of the basic premises, is to understand your enemy, understand your adversary. And history has taught us that the left, progressive, socialists, Marxists, communists, whatever, they are always going to go after the ability of citizens to be able to defend themselves and arm themselves. And so we have got to be in front of that, regardless of what administration, regardless of who's in charge. Like I said, Texas was the 21st state to get constitutional carry. And when you tell people that, folks are just, Texas, 21st? And so we have got to be, like you just articulated, on the offense, but we got to have that plan. Not a perfect plan, but a plan that we can execute perfectly. But it has to be a plan that puts us on the offense and not on the defense.
So circling back, I suppose, to Wayne, obviously he's been accused of essentially abusing his authority that he has at the NRA and access to the funds that he has at the NRA and using them in ways that are probably unlawful, in my opinion. What would you do, or what would your plan be to limit not just yourself, but anyone in that position from doing the type of things that he's done?
Sure. I think most importantly, you have to have transparency. That's transparency that starts from me. I think that when I look at the salaries of the leadership of the NRA, we've got to give everybody a haircut, and that includes starting with the EVP. You're not there to have the organization serve you. You're supposed to be serving the organization. I think every single week you need to have exactly what we did in the military, budget reconciliations that talked about, okay, what money came in, what money went out. You've got to have 2 or 3 sets of eyes that are looking at all of the expenditures and receipts that are going out, and you have to be able to present that to the constituency, to the membership. One of the things that I want to do is every week have a podcast to talk about this week in the NRA, and talk to people and get phone calls from folks coming in saying that here are the decisions that we made, here are the things that we're looking at doing, here are the events that we're looking to have, and be completely transparent in what we're doing with the donor money that is coming in.
Gotcha. That honestly is all of my questions that I wanted to get into. The big reason I wanted to make this video again was just to let people know that you are.
Sure.
I think a lot of people don't know, even within my audience, which is very focused, obviously, on the Second
Mhm.
Amendment. So, with that, anything you want to say before we close the video out? The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I'll be down there in Houston. I live up here in the Dallas area. I'll be down there all day Friday. Of course, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. So please, first and foremost, always remember those who are willing to make the last full measure of devotion. And the Second Amendment is very important to that, because soldiers, sailors, air Marines, we all take a note to the Constitution. This election is not about the members, but the members can have an influence and an impact on this election. It is about the board, and the board will have this vote on Monday, Memorial Day. But without a doubt, what the membership of the National Rifle Association should be doing, if you're not happy with the direction of this organization, let your board members know about that this week.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, the audience learned something here. And like he said, the actionable event here, or actionable item, is to let your board and the members know what you want to see out of the NRA going forward. Do you want more of what we've seen from Wayne, or do we want to see change here with Lieutenant Colonel West? So, with that, sir, thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you as well. We'll see all of you in the next video. And I will see you at the NRA as well.
God bless. Take care.